Perfect. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining. My name is Yao, and I am the Connecticut Land Conservation Council's Director of Grants and Programs. Welcome to CLCC's January Grant Webinar Series. Last week, we kicked off our series with our Land Capital Grants Program and Connecticut Conservation Partnership Program. I will provide a brief recap on both in the next slides. This week, we will discuss our transaction assistance grants and the Climate Smart Land Stewardship Grant Program. So in our first session, we discussed the Land Capital Grant Program, which provides grants for land and conservation easement acquisitions. Eligible applicants include CLCC members. Eligible projects must be located in Connecticut, although we may consider multi-state projects as long as the project is predominantly in Connecticut. Projects must entail permanent protection of the land and must close within 12 months or less of grant award notification. Our minimum grant size is $50,000. Our maximum is $500,000 or 30% of the appraised property value, whichever is lesser. Applications are by invitation only, and applications will be due throughout the calendar year beginning on March 1st. In our second session, we discussed the Connecticut Conservation Partnership Program, which provide grants, grant funds for the purchase of conservation easements to be held by NRCS or by an eligible entity. Eligible applicants are CT Land Trust and the landowners they are working with. Eligible projects must take place on non-industrial private forest, watershed, and agricultural lands. Applicants have the option to choose between two types of conservation easements, a U.S. held easement or an entity held easement. A U.S. held easement is an easement held by NRCS, and an entity held easement is an easement held by an eligible entity. Award sizes are determined by the easement option the applicant chooses, the level of restriction of the easement, and the easement's appraised value. All right. A little bit about CLCC. We are the umbrella organization for the state's land conservation community. Our mission is to elevate and strengthen land conservation in Connecticut. Our work includes providing technical and financial support to land trusts, convening the land conservation community through networking and collaborative programs, advocating on behalf of the conservation community, and providing land trusts tools to further their impact within and outside their communities. Our focus today is on the Transaction Assistance Grant Program. We will review the goals of the program, the eligibility requirements, the application and award process, and use the remainder of the time for any questions you all may have. All right. So what is a Transaction Assistance Grant Program, or TAG for short? TAG provides financial assistance to land trusts for transaction-related project expenses. The goals of the program are to initiate new acquisition projects, bring projects to the finish line, and be responsive to a project's transaction-related needs. Who's eligible to apply? CLCC members. So that means a 501c3 nonprofit organization that identifies as a land trust. And the applicants must hold a conservation interest in the project, either through fee ownership or by holding a conservation easement on the land. And the applicant must have the primary mission of conserving and stewarding that land in perpetuity. Projects must be located within Connecticut and can be a purchase, bargain sale, or donation of any conservation easement or fee property. The maximum award size for any applicant in a calendar year is $20,000. There is an exception for regional land trusts. They may apply for the maximum grant award per the municipality they serve. The $20,000 can be used for the transaction expenses for one project, or it could be used for multiple projects. And eligible transaction expenses include appraisal work, that includes the appraisal, an appraisal review, or an appraisal update, the title work, which includes a title search, title certificate, or title insurance, environmental site assessment, phase 1 and or phase 2s, surveys, and recording fees. Ineligible expenses include legal fees, staff time and salaries, stewardship costs or endowment, management plans, and baseline documentation reports. So projects are evaluated based on a number of criteria. The full scoring criteria is available in the grant guidance documents. So projects are evaluated based on meeting the eligibility criteria and the applicant's capability to carry out their project. In addition to this, we also have the project viability, which is the likelihood of success and the timing of needing to conduct a certain transaction at a specific time. The project's conservation and community impact are also evaluated, and the applicant's ability to secure funding from varied sources in order to move forward the acquisition. Additionally, we also look at the project's innovation, and we are prioritizing the project's ability to be creative, innovative, and urgent. So funding for this program may be awarded in full, in part, or not awarded at all, and that all depends on how a project scores based on the evaluation criteria. In terms of the application process and timeline, applications are accepted monthly. They are due on the last day of a given month, so long as funds are available. Applicants have 6 months from the application due date to complete their transaction and all their reporting requirements involved. Multiple expenses can be requested in a single application for the same project. So expenses may not be incurred before the monthly submission deadline. So as an example, let's say it's February and your land trust is starting a new acquisition project and needs an appraisal. You anticipate contracting for that appraisal in March. You talk to a couple of appraisers and get a quote from one of them. By February 28th, the end of the month, you should apply for funding for that appraisal so that by March, you can get started immediately on the appraisal. So once your application is submitted, between 2 and 3 weeks of submitting that application, you will get notified if you have been awarded funding. In terms of the award process, we disperse funding in 2 installments. We provide 50% of the grant award upfront after receiving the following documentation: a signed grant agreement, a board resolution authorizing the land trust to enter into this agreement, and a completed IRS Form W-9. Now, the remaining 50% of the funding is dispersed once the transaction is completed, and I am provided with all the relevant transaction invoices, proof of match if it's applicable to your project, and proof of payment for that transaction. And that brings us to the end of this presentation.